Hey Internet, it's Captain Erica here. Again, I wanted to make a vlog today about something kind of fun. I have been super obsessed with History Channel's latest show, Alone. If you haven't watched it, just a brief recap, it's 10 people who are sent to Vancouver Island who must survive by themselves. Whoever survives the longest wins $500,000. So it's just kind of a race to the end sort of thing. I find it incredibly fascinating, and I've been kind of thinking about what would I bring if I could be on Alone. The History Channel provides a list of items that the contestants can bring. I'll link that in the description below. But essentially, they have good gear to pick from, but they can only pick 10 items on top of the standard items that everybody gets to bring. So for today, I will talk to you about what I would bring on Alone. So the first item I would bring would be beer. The second item I would bring would be bacon. So item number 3 and number 4 would be BK9s. And that's all I would bring, because that's all I would need. But actually guys, on a more serious note, I actually have thought about this quite a bit, and so I figured I'd just talk to you about what I would bring on Alone and why. So they all get to bring clothing and personal effects, and by personal effects I just mostly mean they can bring a photograph and prescription glasses. Most of the rest is just like standard outdoor clothing that you would wear in the Pacific Northwest. And then they have a small bit of safety gear as well. They've got their camera equipment that they film themselves with, and their backpack and an emergency flare and a couple things like that. They also have a fairly extensive prohibited items list that they can't bring. So no guns, no sunscreen, no maps, compass, explosives, animal poison, a variety of things. So the only thing that makes me a little disappointed is the no guns thing. Not for them, it's actually more entertaining to see them freaked out, but if it was me surviving in the woods with a bunch of bears, which are very common on Vancouver Island, I would want that. But anyway, let's go on to the most fun part of it. So they have a list of survival items that they can pick from, of which they can bring 10 items. And it looks like there's probably like 40 items on here. So picking, what you want to bring is, well, it's hard. It's a challenge to decide what you want to do. Spoiler alert, just so you know, I have watched up to episode 6 of Alone Season 2, so I might drop, tidbits of knowledge from that. So if you haven't seen Alone Season 2 and you want to before you watch this video, you should do it. Anyway, most of the people on Alone Season 2 seem to have brought very similar items, and a lot of the items I think that I would bring would also be along those lines if Alone was on Vancouver Island. I know they're moving away from Vancouver Island for Season 3, however, my items that I've chosen are definitely for the Pacific Northwest. I'm from Oregon. I feel like I have some gear already that would be really good for the Vancouver Island situation. So the easy items to pick were definitely ferro rod. So I have a ferro rod on a variety of different ferro rods on my knife, in my kit, on my extra bags, all kinds of different things. And it says on the list, it says flint or ferro rod set. So what that means is that you can bring a striker too. I don't think that they let you bring the string that comes with a lot of the ferro rod sets, but I would definitely bring the striker. A lot of people that are, hardcore bushcrafters have their ferro rod and their knife, and you strike the ferro rod with the back of the knife. I do that a lot too. However, I think that it's really important to consider the exhaustion level that these people have when they are super tired, they're cold, they're hungry, they've been working really hard on their shelters and things, and so sometimes having that striker with your ferro rod set's really important because it's safer. You're not using a blade to strike, you're using this little tiny piece of metal. It's really easy. You can be really controlled with what you're doing, so you can get right down into the fire. So anyway, I would definitely bring a striker with my ferro rod for sure. The next thing that I think, hands down, I know I would bring would be the warmest sleeping bag possible. I get cold really easy. I do not like being cold. I would bring a synthetic sleeping bag that is just the warmest it can be. And then, yeah, that would be really important, and I would try my darndest to not get it wet. So those are definitely where some of the easier choices. Based on what I've seen in the Alone seasons, both of them, I definitely would bring a gill net. Obviously, fish seems to be their biggest source of food and protein out there on the island. And so, although I've never used a gill net, I think that I would bring one and I would learn everything I could on how to use it. I would also bring a knife. Now, there's a lot of different knife options out there. When I first thought of it, I was like, oh, I'd want my BK11, because my BK11's awesome. I know it. I use it all the time. I'm comfortable with it. It's got a bunch of oil on it from when I last sharpened it, but like, this is my knife, and it's not big. And a lot of the people on Alone are bringing really big knives, and I can see why, because the bigger knives are a little bit more multi-purpose. You can baton through wood, some things like that. But I have to remember, it's really important when you bring items in a survival situation. You know, this is reality TV, but when you're bringing items to Alone, like, don't bring something you've never used before, in theory. Like, gill net aside, obviously, but like, I've used my BK11 a ton and I'm used to it. And so I thought about it a bit, and I really do think I'd want a slightly bigger knife, not a huge knife. And so I was thinking about, oh, I know, my Aurora. I've got a Bark River Aurora, and I love this thing, and I have used this one quite a bit as well, and it's really comfortable. The blade's a little longer, but it's not unwieldy. I can still be really precise with it. But I think if I could purchase a knife to bring on Alone, let's say they're not picking me up tomorrow to go, but I can have a little bit of time to prep, I would bring a BK16. So I actually don't own a BK16, I own a BK15, but I want to show you why, and I can show you with the 15. So the Bark River Aurora, if I was leaving tomorrow, this is what I'd probably end up bringing, but if I had a chance to buy one, I love this, I love the size, but even though the handle is super ergonomic, if you look at the BK, the 15, 16, or 17 handles, see how much more curvy they are? The handle is very ergonomic, and that's really important, not just for like getting hot spots and stuff. I don't think this one would ever do that. I've used this tons and it's never happened. But this one's got a little bit more right here so that my hand doesn't slip. Because when you're tired and you're just like super hungry and you're not, even though you've trained, you know, and if you've used knives a whole lot, sometimes people make stupid mistakes. And we've seen that on the show where people have cut themselves unintentionally, and it's just, when you're tired, you're just so dumb. And so I think I bring the BK16 because it's the perfect size. It's very ergonomic. It's not too unwieldy for my smaller, I have long fingers, but I have smaller hands as a lady. I just think that the BK16 would be perfect. So that's my opinion. I know that technically the steel will rust in the wet environments and all that stuff, but if you're using your knife a lot and just taking good care of it, I don't think it'd be a huge deal. So that's kind of like how I feel about the knife part of it. Then the next thing I know for sure that I would bring would be some sort of saw. I have my Laplander saw with me today. I know that it's funny because like in the bushcrafting community, it's like, I want to start bushcrafting. What do I get? This one. Get the Bajo Laplander saw. This is the saw. It's the only saw you'll ever need. And then there's like people that are, I don't know, they're like cooler or something, and they have different types of hand saws, and they're like, oh, why would you get the Laplander? Like, can't do anything, it can't do some of the stuff that some of the bigger saws can do, for example, or it's heavy, or it's, I don't know, just weird stuff. Whatever, man. I would bring the Laplander if I was leaving tomorrow. Like, I've used this so much. I know it's not the longest saw for the weight. I know that it's not like the most epic cutting saw. Like, I know there's other saws that cut faster, but this is the one I know and I use, and I've built plenty of things that were plenty big enough for me with this saw. If I had to like really think on it and I had some time to get prepped, I might bring a bow saw, but it would be definitely one that I'd be on the fence about because I'm so comfortable with this. It's so portable. It's really hard to cut yourself with it. So just some things like that. I'm obviously a little bit paranoid about cutting myself, but as we've seen on the show, if you cut yourself, you're in deep doo-doo. So that's how I feel about saws. Now some of the other stuff you start to get like, what do I want to bring? Like there's a lot of different shelter, bedding, cooking, hunting, food, and tool options, which you can see on the list. And I think that probably my next one that I know I would bring would be Paracord. I just have some random Paracord here today, but again, I've used Paracord a lot. It's pretty versatile. Is it the best rope ever to use? No, but the other rope option is climbing rope, and I don't think I've never used climbing rope, so I would just feel more comfortable using the Paracord. And I think that the Paracord would be really handy for building lots of cool stuff. So that would be really important to me. They've been finding a lot of rope on the show, and it's kind of like, maybe I wouldn't need to bring rope, but I'd really want to have some rope with me. I don't think I'd want to like rely on finding it in nature. The other thing I know I would probably bring would be they give you 2 tarps to bring, but you can actually bring a third, a ground cloth or tarp, and I think I would bring that and it has grommets, so I would get one with grommets in it too, because Vancouver Island is so wet, and I live in Oregon, and when you're camping and stuff gets wet, it sucks. So I would definitely bring it. And if for some reason I built like a super awesome mega shelter and didn't need it anymore, I would turn it into cool stuff like bags or other versatile items that I could use by cutting it up into chunks. But most likely I'd probably keep it whole. And then I start getting like, what do I want to bring next? A lot of people brought fishing line. I think I would also bring fishing line and the 25 hooks that they would allow. I'm actually not like really a big fisher lady, but I would learn how. And I've done a little bit of fishing, so I don't think it would be a huge deal, but I would probably read up on it some more before I left. Okay, so I've done 8 items now. I think for the last 2 items, things start getting hard to pick out what you want to bring. A lot of people on the show, in fact, I think everybody in season 2 has brought an axe so far. I don't know if I would bring an axe. I know that seems silly because they're such a versatile tool, but I'm not super skilled with an axe yet. I have 2 or 3 axes on my wish list, but I don't own any axes right now besides a small hatchet and a tomahawk. But when I get tired, I get stupid, and so I just don't have the training for an axe at this time. Now, I have cut myself with a giant knife before, like with a BK9, so, you know, just because I'm not bringing an axe doesn't mean I'm not going to get cut. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would bring an axe, but that might change if I ever get an axe and discover how amazing they are. You can do a lot with a little saw and a knife, like so much, because when you're in those thick, you know, forests and stuff, there's just dead wood everywhere. You know, you can cut down ridge poles and things like that with the saw just fine. You can size up, you know, logs and sticks to whatever size you need with a saw just fine. Like a saw is very useful. I know the argument a lot of the times for the axe is that you need it to split wood so you can get wood dry. I've built a lot of fires in the rain, and I think that is really nice, but it's not essential. You can cut and baton through small sticks and get those dry relatively quickly, and then it looks really like it's not a very organized fire, but you just pile a ton of crap on top of your fire. So you have like your fire that's going that you've made out of small little twigs and sticks that you've carved and cut and batoned, and then you just pile up like a bunch of crap on top, and it like steams and smokes, and it's not very pretty, but it dries out the wood. As far as the bigger logs and stuff, I think that, yeah, you can split wood and things. I don't know. It's hard, obviously, you can tell. So the last 2 items, I definitely would bring at least one thing of the 5 pounds of pemmican. So pemmican is, there's a bunch of different food items. Some people, like there's jerky, there's legumes and lentil mix, there's hardtack, chocolate, pemmican, gorp, flour, rice sugar, and salt. I don't eat carbs on a regular basis really ever. I usually do like a paleo style diet, and actually right now I'm doing a ketogenic diet, so I eat a lot of meat and fats already. And so I think my body would take to the pemmican the most easily and be able to use those calories the most efficient way possible. So I think that the pemmican would be by far the way to go. I think that the lentils will make me sick. I think the jerky, not enough fat. I think that the chocolate would be nice, but a little unnecessary. And then like military biscuits or gorp. Like gorp is something that a couple people brought. I can see why they'd bring it, but I don't think the sugars are as important as the fats. So that's what I would bring on that. That leaves one more item. So is it an axe? Is it a multi-tool? Like, is it extra food? I think it would be extra food or a multi-tool. I'm one of the guys, actually, there's 2 guys on Alone season 2 right now that have a multi-tool, and I'm really curious to see how much they use it in the show. I always carry my Leatherman Wave with me, everyday carry, and I do use it for random weird stuff. And I think it's one of those comfort items. Like, I feel comfortable. I would want to have it with me because it's something I always have with me. But I'd have the BK16 or the Bark River Aurora or something like that. But that's just a knife, and the tools, the pliers are so handy, let alone all the other tools. There's a bird in the bush over there. So I guess it'd be a multi-tool or another bag of pemmican, depending on how I was feeling. And that would be it. I feel like I've been talking about this stuff a long time, but it's really fun for me to kind of like contemplate, what would I do in that situation? And everybody has their kind of ideas and plans of what they would do if they were on Alone. And then, of course, they're sitting on their couch and they're eating food and they're taking hot warm showers and everything else. So nobody really knows what would be the perfect thing to bring because there's so much variance in what can happen in nature. But I think those are the items that I would bring, and I don't know, I'm curious to see what everybody else would bring too. So go ahead and comment below what you might bring, or if you think I'm totally an idiot for not bringing an axe. I want to hear it. So thank you so much for watching, and yeah, see you next time. Peace.
Okay, it's rolling.
Is it rolling? No. Check out my mosquito bite. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
And that one?
Gosh.
Yeah.
You really react to those.
Yep.
Well, even I'm reacting today. These mosquitoes seem to be...
They are healthy mosquitoes. Okay, that's all.